All right. How about a faller, Breach?
I'm going to go with Johnny Newton. Look, when you talked about the best defensive tackles, I feel like a few weeks ago it was Byron Murphy, who we were talking about a little bit earlier, and Newton. And the only reason I think he could fall is just because he is dealing with kind of coming off a foot injury. I think he had off-season foot surgery. And when you look at that with a defensive tackle, that's just a question mark you don't want to be dealing with. So I could see teams, just because of the injury risk, passing on him in the first round, and you see him fall into the second round. I think in most mock drafts I've seen, he is going in the first round. So I think it would be a little bit of surprise if he falls to the second round. But my gosh, I'm going to go ahead and say that happens.
Well, that's the other thing too. These teams, the domino can happen really quickly, where if all of a sudden one team doesn't take them or that free fall starts to fall, people will say, okay, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with his medicals? Did something come up? What don't we know? And let's just take him off our board entirely. Like, that happens more often than you think in the NFL.
Saw it with Bo Callahan in draft day.
So, I mean, well, yes, I guess that's true too. So, happens even in the motion pictures. So yeah, no, I could totally see something along those lines.
I'm going to take Latu out of UCLA. Again, I'm just going to call it Latu for the rest of his career. Like, I'm never going to say his first name. How do you pronounce his first name? Is it
Latu?
Latu. Okay, I can do that. I can figure that out. Oh, we just went 3 wide for some reason. That was bizarre. Sure, giant head face. No, it's fine, Harry. Keep it up. It doesn't bother me. More of me. I think Latu is a guy where there's some buzz about medical issues. And with the depth at wide receiver, with the depth at O-line, like one of the offensive line, like one of the groups, the offensive line or the wide receivers is going to have, I think, is going to have a big run, and that's going to push the other part of that group. So like the Chiefs and the Bills, yeah, everybody's like, oh, you need to take a wide receiver. Like, I could see them ending up sitting back there and be like, we're going to take an offensive lineman because the good ones fell to us, and we'll take a wide receiver the next round. I think we just see a run on one of those, and then so as a result, like you could see Murphy, Chop Robinson go early, but I think Latu is a guy that could slip a little bit because of those medicals.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, mine is a little bit more, it's not a fall because people don't like the prospect. I wonder if Jayden Daniels is going to try to force himself to the Raiders. And could we see a fall, maybe not all the way down to where the Raiders are currently picking, but even if he falls, I don't know, out of 2 like that, I still think is a considerable fall for a guy that we all feel like is odds on pegged to be the number 2 overall pick to the Commanders. But there has been so much smoke, I don't even know if we call it smoke at this point. We just know the relationship.
I mean, played for Antonio, played with, right. Played for Antonio Pierce as a coach.
We know the relationship between Antonio Pierce and Jayden Daniels. I mean, we even interviewed Rachaad White a few weeks ago on this podcast, and played with Jayden Daniels, and he was even mentioning the Raiders. Like, clearly he wants to go play for the Raiders. He just knows he can't go play for the Raiders. But I do wonder if we get to a Eli Manning situation, and if he falls to kind of try to get to a spot where he thinks the Raiders could trade up and go get him. I'd just be curious about that. Again, not likely, but I do wonder, how much Jayden Daniels really wants to play for the Raiders.
What would be really interesting about that, Breach, I think, is if the feeling is mutual, and why wouldn't it be? We're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner and somebody who's considered like a consensus, or like could go second overall, where that's why you could still see Drake May go second overall, because and like I saw Adam Levitan of Established Run tweet this out. There's like a lot of instances where Jayden Daniels has sort of quasi publicly noted that he's cool on Washington, his agent didn't love them bringing in 20 guys. There's something that, like a couple of different things where he's and I think you could make the case that, let's say the Raiders, Mark Davis is like, yeah, like, let's go get this guy. You could call the Patriots and say, we'll give you 3 first-round picks if you're the Raiders to move up to number 3 from number 11. If you're the Patriots, you have to take that. Like, you have to take that from a team in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. You have to take that. Like, this team is going to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year, Justin Herbert twice a year, and then even like the Broncos, who are at least coached by Sean Payton, not Nathaniel Hackett now. Like, if you can get that 3 first-round picks, which is what I think it would cost to go from 11 to 3 to get Jayden Daniels, that's a no-brainer.
But if you're the Raiders, you're going from 13 to 3, so you're going even further
13
back.
to 3, not 11.
Yeah. The Vikings would have to go from 11 to 3. This would be crazy if it happened, because it would, you'd basically have to have Jayden Daniels call up the Commanders or his agent and say, we're going to sit out if you draft us and we're not going to play. And so you better just call the Raiders and make a trade. He'd have to pull an Eli or a John Elway. But he did, he was interviewed Wednesday morning and said he'd be blessed to go wherever he's called to go. And it felt like he was kind of trying to just make
swing it back.
Yeah. Kind of put the toothpaste.
Jam the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Yeah. And so it does feel like it's headed with him going to the Commanders, but it is just interesting to think if he's not happy about being there, that, Antonio Pierce might call after year one and be like, look, things didn't work. We'll take him still. We'd still be more than happy to have him.
By the way, Jay Daniels out to minus 550 at FanDuel to be the number 2 overall pick. Drake May minus 290 to be the number 3 overall pick. You can still get plus 350 on McCarthy to go 4th overall, plus 430 on McCarthy to go 3rd overall. And of course, the aforementioned trade we talked about where May the Patriots and the Giants swap could easily involve May being drafted 3rd and being traded to the team that is picking 6, right? Where it's not like the Giants and the Pats make that swap, because then the Patriots would be stuck at 6 and wouldn't be guaranteed McCarthy.